Welcome, Lindsey. So great to have you. I'm thrilled to be able to have this conversation and get some really great information out to folks. Lindsey Hoelzle is who is joining me today. She is an attorney with Palmarella Raab in Wayne, Pennsylvania. Lindsey, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing all of your wisdom with me specifically, but also with our clients and community.
Thanks, Megan. I'm so happy to be here with you too.
Yeah,
Great talking with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited to get into it. So basically what we're going to do today is Lindsey and I are just going to have a conversation. We are going to put out some really great topics for you to be thinking about, for you to be asking your financial advisor and your estate planning attorney about. And we're going to break these out into little videos so that they don't become too overwhelming. So Lindsey, let's start. Let's jump in with, let's just talk about, from your perspective, the most important key parts of an estate plan.
Sure. So I'll just get started with the goals of your estate planning, right? Are two main things. So first we're talking about incapacity, and then we're also talking about death. So the first goal will be to make sure you're providing for yourself and your loved ones if you become disabled. And the second goal is to give what you have to who you want to have it, the way that you want them to have it, when you want them to have that. Estate planning is more than just documents, but for today's purposes, we're going to talk about the most important documents for you to have in place. So starting kind of with the one that most people think about is your will. The will lets you name beneficiaries for your assets, the person or people that you want to administer your estate. You can also name guardians if you have minor children, and you can say how you want your remains to be disposed. Do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be buried? And what other information do you want to provide to people about that? So that's your will. That's the most basic elements of your will. The second document that you need to have in place is your power of attorney. So that document lets you name someone to help you make financial decisions when you're unable to make them for yourself. The next document is your healthcare power of attorney and living will. So that's a combined document in Pennsylvania. In some states, that might be two separate documents. The power of attorney part of that allows you to name someone to help make healthcare decisions for you when you're unable to make them for yourself. And the living will side of it allows you to help to let your helpers know the type of end of life care decisions that you'd like to make when you're in a position where you're unable to make them for yourself. And the final document that you would sign that I think you really should consider having in place is your HIPAA authorization. And that's the document that allows you to give your helpers access to your medical information. I usually make it for up to 2 years after your death, if for any reason they should need access to your medical records. And one other thing to consider really is to put memorial instructions in place during an already difficult time for your family. Being able to know what your wishes were and what you wanted at the end of your life, who you wanted to be there. It really makes things a lot easier for your family.
Wonderful. Perfect. So we will be creating some more content about these specific documents in future videos. But for everybody that's watching, just know that these are the key components that you should be discussing with your financial advisor and your estate planning attorney on a regular basis. This helps us to really make sure that you have a plan to live well, which is Beacon Bridge's goal, is in total wellness and in total retirement. We want to make sure that you and your family have the things in place that you need to make hard situations easier to navigate. We have outlined in our previous conversations, the most basic parts of an estate plan and what you should be considering as you're navigating these documents with your estate planning attorney. But we felt like there was so much information involved in, powers of attorney, both financial and healthcare. So we wanted to break this video out a little bit to give you a little bit more information about what is involved in each and when you should be really paying attention to making updates to these things. So, Lindsey, hop into that topic.
Of course. So, as we talked about in our previous videos, it's really important as part of any basic estate plan to have a financial power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney in place. We put those in place for every estate plan, regardless of age. And the reason for that is you never know when something's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And if something does happen to you and you're incapacitated, it could be for a brief period of time, or it could be something like a dementia diagnosis where your condition is likely going to deteriorate over time. It's really important to have a power of attorney in place while you have capacity and are able to execute the document. The reason for that is that when you are incapacitated and can't go to banks and make financial decisions for yourself, your family and you personally are going to be very negatively affected by that. If you don't have a power of attorney in place, you're going to need somebody to be able to step in and make financial decisions for you. And what happens when you don't have a power of attorney in place is that you have to have someone go to court and be named as a guardian to be able to make those decisions for you. That court process is time consuming, it's expensive, and it's somewhat long lasting. And so it makes it very challenging for your family. If you have a power of attorney in place now, they're going to be able to step in and go to banks and talk to your memory care facility for you and help you make decisions.
Yeah. And you were mentioning earlier, which I thought was a really great point, which is, your experience or our experience, our collective experience, anybody that's watching this could be that, you may have been in the hospital with your mom or dad or, a grandparent, and the hospital is much more open to sort of talking to next of kin, right? They're in a helping profession. And so they are really trying to make sure that the family is staying in the loop with what's happening, and they'll share as much information as they can without, having HIPAA in place. But that's not the experience you're going to meet in a financial institution. That's not regulated. It's not compliant. And so making sure that both of these are in place is what is going to allow people to be able to navigate this without there being a lot of hoops to jump through, right? When you're going through a situation where someone is not well or they are entering into their end of life, making it more complicated is what we're trying to avoid.
That's right. Your healthcare providers are going to speak to your husband to let him know how you're doing. Really good to have a healthcare power of attorney in place so that the healthcare providers don't have any questions about who they are allowed to speak with. But your bank, you're not going to have the same luck with if you don't have a power of attorney in place.
Yeah. And I think as we've spent this past year really focused on total retirement, right? Retirement is a transition. It's not the transition, but it's a very big transition that is tied up in a lot of, money factors, certainly. But the way that we look at retirement is through the lens of, your health and health care, your relationships, your lifestyle, and your purpose. And so the point of this conversation today is really to say retirement is a time when many things can happen because of your transition. People transition into retirement. And so there can be lots of great things that can happen, right? You now have this newfound time freedom, and maybe you're, exercising and spending time with grandchildren, and that's all great and well. But for the flip side of that coin, people that transition and, all of a sudden they start to experience a change in capacity. That's a really important time and a really important inflection point in which we need to be talking about doing the POAs before any of that is even possible. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So in order to execute a power of attorney, you have to have what's called capacity. So you have to understand what you're signing and be able to execute the document. If you're not able to do that, if you get past that point, then the court process is inevitable. And that's going to be really challenging for your family. If you have the documents in place prior to incapacity, it's just makes your life and your family's life so much easier.
Yeah, so it's really important. Lindsey and I feel very similarly about this. It's very important to be thinking about this for yourself, but also to be thinking about this for other members of your family, right? So if you have somebody who's going through retirement or has been through retirement, but didn't necessarily pay attention to all of these things, this now is the time to really, think about who does this apply to in my life, because maybe you have done it for yourself, but maybe your parents didn't do it, and that is going to impact you as well. So be thinking about, the relationship part of this too, which is if you're brave enough to do your own estate plan, you certainly can offer, some assistance in terms of getting somebody that you love, that you will be impacted by their transitions over time, to get them in contact with somebody that you care about. So that's really fantastic. Anything else, Lindsey, about the power of attorneys before we switch it up to the wills?
One other note, because you just brought this up, was just talking with your family about your estate planning and the power of attorney that you have in place. Always good for your power of attorney to know that they're going to be your power of attorney when something happens to you.
Excellent point. Excellent point. We are going to dive a little bit deeper into wills, because there is a distinct difference between your living will and your actual will that will be read with all of your, family members in a room, as it is in the movies, with an attorney present. So, Lindsey, thanks so much for being here. Let's get into the difference between living will and actual will, and how each of those is used in an end of life place.
Thanks again for having me, Megan. Yeah, so there's a big difference between a will and a living will. So your will is the document that lets you name your beneficiaries, who's going to receive what you have, when you want them to have it, all in the way that you want them to receive it. It lets you name your executor, the person that's going to help you administer your estate when you're gone. It lets you name, or it lets you state your end of life wishes in terms of burial or cremation. And you can also name guardians for your minor children if you happen to have minor children. Those are really important things in your will. That's the document that we talk about getting probated, that you would go into the Register of Wills and be able to begin the probate process. Very different from your living will, which is truly a document that is in place for while you're living, but it states your end of life health care wishes. And so it has nothing to do with your probate process or your beneficiaries or anything like that. It really, truly just lets you state your end of life healthcare wishes. And it's a document where you can be as particular and specific or as general as you want to be. We have a lot of people that just want to say something like, if I'm at an end of life stage and there's nothing more, there's no meaningful hope for recovery, then, all I want is pain medicine. I don't want to be on machines for any longer than a certain period of time. And I want things to be as easy for my family as possible, just very generally and easily like that. But then we have other people that want to be really particular about what their end of life care wishes are. And those people want to be able to say things like, I want the CPR. I want to be on a ventilator. I want pain medication. I want tube feedings. I want antibiotics. Maybe I don't want blood products, but you want to be able to distinguish between what you do and what you don't want. And if you want to be able to do that, you can do that too in your living will. You can be really specific about organ donation. Do you want to just do the driver's license type organ donation? Do you want to be particular and be able to donate more vascular allografts, as they call them, your hands, things that are very particular? Or do you want to be able to say, yes, I'll do organ donation, but do not donate my organs to science? Some people want to be very particular that the only place they can go is to another human being. And so you can be very particular, or like I said, very general about what your wishes are. But it's something that's really important to put together. It helps your family understand what your wishes are. And as with everything that we're doing here, it really just makes things easier on your family. And that's really the goal, is to make things as peaceful and easy as possible when difficult things are happening.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as all of our clients and community know, this is, what we preach all the time, is that you must have a plan to live well, right? And that includes this sort of end of life part, which is what's going to happen to me if I get sick, or if there's something that happens, there's a trauma, anything like that. And this is a really important part of that whole story and that whole plan, because you're also impacting the people around you. So your caretakers, your loved ones, the people who are going to show up for you at these points in time, it's really important that that plan goes all the way through to the end. And this is the way that the government has set up for us to be able to make sure that those are followed through with and on. So those are really two good distinctions. Anything else that you would share, either about the living will or your just actual will, that you would encourage people to think about as they're coming up with the content for those?
Yeah, I mean, I would just think about, what if you have been in a situation, a lot of people have been, especially if we're talking about people that are retiring now. We've been in the hospital with a loved one before. And we might know how difficult or how easy they made it for us. And I would just encourage you to think about your past experiences and what made things easier or harder for your family, for you, in difficult situations. And consider all of those things. It's not just legal. This is really a what's best for you and your family.
Yeah. And it ties back to, we look at total retirement or total wellness through the lenses of finance, healthcare, relationships, lifestyle, and purpose. And this estate planning, whether we're talking about the will or the POAs, is really an encompassing of all of those things. And as we head into the fourth quarter here, and we talk about purpose. So, what is the purpose of your money? How do you really want that to make the greatest impact? These documents are those things that need to be thought about and cared for in the same way that your financial plan would be, because you want to make sure that they are in alignment to support the life that you want to live. So it's really important that, if you have estate documents already in place, that you're reviewing them on a regular basis. Nobody's asking you to look at them, more than once a year, maybe once every other year. But, taking a look at them, making sure that your beneficiaries are up to date, that everybody that's in there should still be in there, that, all of your choices for your living will are still the choices you would make today, because that changes over time. So just to be really intentional about that, make sure that you're working with an estate planning attorney that you really feel like is caring for you and your estate plan in a meaningful way, that they're paying attention to all of these different parts, and that at the end of the day, you feel really good about the plan documents that come out at the end. So thank you so much, Lindsey, for being here, for imparting your wisdom on us. Go back and watch the other videos. If you started with this one, we cover basic estate planning, the difference between financial and healthcare powers of attorney, and the difference between the two wills, as we've done in this video. So thanks so much. Remember, keep planning to live well. Make sure that you have good resources by you to make good decisions. And if you need anything, you can always reach out to us. Thanks so much, Lindsey.
Thanks, Megan.
All right, take care.